Hello and welcome to a special Sunday Great Vision of Gen X America. Today, the thing that got on my nerves was watching an interview on the Ben Shapiro Daily Wire show with Piers Morgan. And the section of the Ukrainian conflict came up. And in typical bloviating British fashion, Piers Morgan came out with his questioning of American integrity that some of these Europeans like to do when they're not getting their way. Specifically, he was asking why there are all these people on the political right who used to hate Russia and hate the Soviet Union, who suddenly are not interested in protecting Ukraine from the invasions of the evil Putin. Well, Pierce, there's a good reason for that. And how dare you actually question America's interests in protecting the world? The reason many of us have dropped out of the interest of being a world police, as was often said and criticized by the Team America World Police movie, maybe if you didn't understand, is that America very often went in, stumbled in, and did do bad things. But that's not the real problem, because nothing is perfect. The real problem is the selective criticism of Europe and Europeans for what America does. Specifically, the fact that it seems very much like the only wars they agree with that America gets into are ones that directly benefit them. If you wonder why this former pro-America, pro-help the world American who was happy to send troops anywhere in the world to go stop the evil injustices of tyrants doesn't give a crap anymore, it's very simply this, really simple. America went to the Gulf War, which you mentioned, by the way, Piers Morgan. You mentioned the Gulf War, and you said, what happened to the America that went in to kick Saddam Hussein out, a guy who invaded a foreign territory? He wasn't a NATO member. Kuwait wasn't a NATO member. But yet you pushed him out, and now all of a sudden nobody wants to fight Russia to kick them out of Ukraine. Well, let me remind you, Piers Morgan, something that you should know, and I think you're avoiding, is the fact that there was many European anti-American protests against us kicking Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. This is a fact. Anti-American protests, anti-war protests, anti-no war for oil protests went on left and right back in that time period. I know because I was there. You go on then to criticize the Iraq war that Bush 2 got us into. After talking about massive genocides or the genocide in Ukraine or people getting slaughtered in Ukraine and 1 inch of territory, you kept saying 1 inch of territory. Well, let's not forget that Saddam Hussein murdered over 300,000 of his own people. That alone should have been a reason for a mass worldwide European pro-America go in there and kick his butt and get him out in the 19s under Bill Clinton. Why not? Maybe because Iraqi oil didn't benefit England or didn't benefit the European Union? Although it did seem to benefit the French, because I seem to remember Mitterrand and these oil for food scandals that got swept under the rug by the time we got to the 2000s. Here we have seen, after 20 years of being in Afghanistan, here we also see Joe Biden dropping the ball on 20 years of trying to nation build in Afghanistan. Now, mind you, I'm not somebody who wanted nation building in Afghanistan. Not me personally. I just wanted to kick their ass and get the heck out, like Don Rumsfeld did, who was criticized for saying he was going to go in and break it. And you had Colin Powell saying, you break it, you own it, which kept us in there for 20 years, spending our treasuries and the lives of our men. So then we get to Syria under Obama. After all of these big peaceniks, all of these anti-war protesters, Obama gets elected, expands the wars into more places than ever than Bush did. I mean, Bush was Afghanistan and Iraq too. You know, let's face it, under Obama, we were in Syria, we were in Yemen, we were in Somalia, we were in Pakistan. The whole war, the whole field of that expanded out, the whole war on terrorism, which I wasn't necessarily against. But let's face it, so much of the European press, including you, just considered George Bush and all the people who started these wars racist against Middle Eastern people. Okay? We heard the Islamophobia thing all through the 2000s. So let's get to Ukraine today and why some of us like, screw it, I don't care about Ukraine. It's not really that we don't care about Ukraine. It's that it seems very peculiar that Europeans and especially you, Piers Morgan, and some of your European colleagues, seem to have a very vested interest in America securing Ukrainian gas companies and securing Ukrainian gas pipelines. Oh, which coincidentally, we're going to be going through Syria, who didn't want to cooperate with the European Union and America to send gas into Europe. Now, we get it. Russia's got a stranglehold on you guys. And you also decided to go with all this green energy stuff that lowered your ability to produce energy for yourself. And you became more and more dependent on Russian gas and oil. In fact, I think Trump warned you about that and you laughed at him about being too independent. About being too dependent on on Russian gas and oil. So here we are today with Putin giggling and having control over you. When you were warned by those of us you would consider evil MAGA Republican types or whatever, America First types, who are like, no, we're done. We're done warning you. And we're done sending our boys to go fight your wars. You praise America as a superpower. You praise America's might. You praise America's ability. But then when we actually do something, shortly afterward comes nothing but complete criticism and derangement about how we conducted ourselves or what we did. In short, you like us to be your wonderful little dog that goes barking for you every time something's not going your way. And then you want to punish that dog and send him back into a closet when he doesn't do as you see fit. You especially don't like it when that dog does things independently for itself. So when America fights a war that's strictly an America First war for itself, for its interests, you suddenly don't like that. We're not playing on the world playground well enough. We're not catering to the interests of the EU. Well, that's too bad. As an American, I'm interested in what benefits me, my country, and my fellow Americans, more than what benefits Europeans, more than what benefits Ukrainians. Now, there was a time, don't get me wrong, where many of us were very happy to go in and beat the daylights out of dictators and tyrants that tormented their own people. This is a good reason. That's why we supported going into Iraq and removing Saddam Hussein. That's why we supported going in and removing Milosevic. That's why we supported going into Rwanda and trying to get rid of all of these warmongering gangs that was stealing food that was going to poor people. That's why we were supported that, America's strength. But then something happened. And that thing that happened was over a great period of time. It started to seem like you're only okay with these wars when the right politicians are doing them. In other words, when these globalist-minded politicians are doing them, like Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. But anyone who's an America First politician, you're against. It's just become very apparent to me that whether it's American media, who is sycophants for the European press, in my opinion, they just follow exactly, they want to be European, they're pseudo-Europeans, they admire everything about Europe, and they want America to emulate and reflect Europe more. They hate actual American culture and Americans, especially the Midwestern Rust Belt people. They love wars when they're European-style wars, when they're done by Democrats, not done by Republicans. Republicans' wars are bad. Democrat wars are good. Now, of course, Republican wars are good if they serve European interests. And this is something many of us have noted and are taking very close attention to. Why don't you guys ramp up your militaries instead of relying on America to spend their tax dollars having a military that protects the entire Western world? While you criticize it, by the way, why don't you draft your boys and send them to Ukraine? You know all those migrants that came in, the economic migrants that have went through your borders and have been sucking off your system, that came up after the Syrian conflict, by the way? It's like they took all these walls. Remember walls were bad. And so you observe, why don't you take all those people that are in your countries, draft them, put them in the military, and send them to fight Russia? I don't care. I don't want Putin to win. I don't like Putin. I don't like Russia. But what you seem to be doing is crapping all over America while still expecting America to go fight your wars for you. Now, there are a lot of dumb Americans who fall for this. But I'm tired of having the American dog being wagged by the tail of Europe and then being criticized for it later. That's what you probably don't understand about many of us who were former American interventionists, let's just say. We're done. We're done being the fools that fight the wars to benefit this global economy, these globalists, and these European leaders. We're done. That's what we are fighting for. We want to put America first. We want to put America first, not because we hate the rest of the world, but because all we do is get nothing but criticism for not doing it the way you wanted it done, for not doing something that benefits you and the Europeans. So this whole war thing that's been going on for my entire life was only you were only able to sell it to Americans. You were only able to sell it to guys like me when people wanted America, saw America as that world police and the country that they wanted to police the world. But you guys screwed the pooch. You screwed the pooch in your media. You screwed the pooch. You screwed the pooch by letting all these socialists run your countries, and then criticize the capitalism, criticize the Western world, criticize meritocracy. You screwed the pooch by coming after our First Amendment rights with your weird hate speech laws and all these sort of things that infringe on the First Amendment. Your desire to have America give up their guns because you think we're all crazy gun nuts over here, so you want to give us a Second Amendment. The surveillance state. All of these things that those of us who are more libertarian style Americans are like, hey, what am I fighting for? Here's the point. You're asking us to lose what it is to be Americans. You're asking us to lose America, while at the same time demanding that we go fight the wars you're not willing to fight. Draft your own boys, tax your own people more to raise a military that you need to go eject Putin. But stop saying there's something wrong with us. Stop implying there's something wrong with Americans. Those of us who are the America First, MAGA Americans. Because we've said, okay, we've had enough. We used to fight your wars. You know, I keep thinking of A Few Good Men, the movie, and Jack Nicholson. And the villain in that movie was Jack Nicholson. And he had that speech about, you know, I'm the guy on the wall. I'm the guy that sees all the stuff that you don't see and you don't want to deal with. I give you protection, and then you criticize the way I protect you. Now, when I was a younger man, I was far more on the side of Tom Cruise's character and the brutality that was going on in the military to make guys tough, make these Marines tough. But as we become older, I definitely agree more and more with Jack Nicholson's character in A Few Good Men. You want us to protect the world, but then you criticize the way we do it. And then you criticize that we have any thoughts of keeping some of that treasure for ourselves. We ignore our politicians, especially the Democrats, ignore the people in this country. We could see it with the way in Ohio that Biden spent no time, didn't seem to care to even go to deal with the train derailments and the poison in the atmosphere. Sending another $50 billion or so to Ukraine, in the meantime, sending nothing to those people in the Midwest. The flyover country. The fact is, what's going on more and more, and I am an East Coaster, is that the East and West Coasts have become far too Europhilic, I think is a good word, enamored by European culture, enamored by the European way of life. And you know, those flyover country people, those ignorant flyover country people, who actually generally fill the military with their sons and daughters, the military that you like to crap on. Well, a lot of them are saying, maybe I'm not going to send my sons and daughters to military to go fight in a foreign land when we're just going to be crapped on. And then our needs here in the Midwest are going to be ignored by politicians, liberal, elite politicians from each coast. People that you, Piers Morgan, sometimes criticize yourself. You're not very happy with Meghan Markle, huh? And how she's talking about your country. So in conclusion, I'm going to say what I said in the first. Don't expect America to be world police if the America First get in charge. We're done. Europe's going to have to take care of European problems, just like Thomas Jefferson and the founding fathers said. Don't get involved in European entanglements. Maybe some of us are just going back to what the founders originally wanted. This has been a special edition that I felt that I needed to rant about. See ya, and I'll be continuing those episodes on Gen X America.